Hello friends, this is tutorial number 56 in this C++ programming language tutorials. In previous tutorial we calculated the area of triangle, circle, square and rectangle. And in this tutorial we will do some similar thing, but a little more complex. We will calculate the volume and the surface of the sphere. We will create couple of spheres, and we will display all of that spheres that we created, and of course in the end we will want to know which is the sphere with, for example, minimum volume or surface or maximum volume of surface. Okay, we will see. But first we need to create, let's create class of sphere. Class sphere without destructor. We don't need it. Okay, we will include this. Here is our class sphere, and here is a sphere CPP. First, let's include this IRstream and standard namespace to the CPP. We will paste it here, and this namespace standard we will include in a class of the sphere. We will paste it here, and in the main function we need to include class sphere. Okay, that's good. Now let's go to the class of sphere, and we don't need protected fields here. Let's create. We will just create one private field. It will be a radius. It will be a double radius. And now we want to create two public functions. It will be get volume and get surface. With these public functions we will calculate the volume and the surface of the sphere. And first let's create a constructor. In the constructor we will have double. It will be a local variable a, but it will be a radius of the sphere. And let's create a void function. No, it will not be a void, it needs to be a double. It will be get volume. It needs to be a double because we'll return a value, and double get surface. And let's define a constructor and the functions here in the sphere CPP. Okay, this sphere the constructor will have a double variable a, and this radius will be equals to a. And let's define two functions that we created, double sphere, and we will write get volume, and we need to return a volume of the sphere. But to calculate the volume of the sphere we need a p number, and to use a p number we need to include cmath from the C++ library. And now we need to use a formula, a math formula, to calculate the volume of the sphere. And the formula is 4 divided with 3 multiplied with p number, and we will write m p, and multiplied with a cube number of the radius, and we will use a pow function radius 3 times. Okay, and this function will return us the volume of the sphere. And now let's define another function. Wait a second, sometimes this code blocks. Sphere, let's write again sphere, and okay, here it is, get surface. Let's define this function. It needs to return a double value, and it will be, now we will use a formula to calculate the surface of the sphere, and it is 4 multiplied with a p number, p, this is a p number, multiplied with a square of the radius. We can write radius multiplied with radius, but we will use a pow function again, radius 2 times. Okay, we have a constructor, we define our two functions that we created. Now what can we do? Now we will go to the main method, and we need to create a vector of the spheres, but we will not do it now. We will not do it in the main function. Instead, it is better, and we will do it in the next tutorials also. We will create a static vector. We'll create it here, static vector, and what it means. If we created a vector here in the main function, we can directly access to this vector just inside the main function. But if we created here, let's create static vector of sphere, and we will call it, I will call it boxes. If you want, you can call it spheres, but I will call it boxes, it will be easier. And now we can, of course, if we want, we can directly access this vector from the main function, and also from other functions we can also access to this static vector. And I think it is better than we create just a vector inside the main function. It will be easier. Now let's create a function, void function. We will call it create spheres. Create spheres. This function will create a couple of spheres, but first let's write, we need a local variable, integer x will be equals to 0. We will create a double radius, but this radius is just a local variable. And we can create one more integer number. And this number, now I will show, because we will start the application how many spheres, and we need to input this number, and this number will be response how many spheres we will have in our application. And let's write cout how many spheres. And we will input a number as a response. Okay, it can be 2, 5, 10, it doesn't matter. This number will be, it depending which number we will enter. And now we can create a while loop. While x is lesser than a number, then what will happen? First we need to write, let's write we will write first we will need x, but it will be x plus, because x starts from 0, we need to write x plus 1, we need a slash, and we need a number. If we enter 5 spheres, it will be first of 5, and we need end line here. Now let's write a text, and we need to enter sphere radius. End line, and we will input this a local variable radius. Okay, now we have this local variable, but this at this moment this local variable radius has nothing to do with this private field radius. But how we will connect it? We will create a new sphere. It will be S. As you can see, to create a sphere, we need to, inside this sphere, we need in the constructor, we need to have double number, and we will put this local variable radius, and our sphere is created. And now what we want to do, I will show you now that we can have access to this. We need to put this sphere in this static vector of the boxes, and it will be simple boxes. As you can see, we can access this vector from the function. If this vector is inside, if we create just a simple vector inside the main function, we can access to that vector, but we cannot access directly. And here we can directly access to this static vector of the boxes. That's the difference. Boxes dot pushback. We will put this sphere as to the vector, and we can forget to increment x, local variable x, and our vector of the spheres will be, which is called boxes, will be created. We will have a couple of spheres inside. And we finish with this. We finished with creating spheres. We can also display, but for display we can write, but maybe it will be, we can also do it in this function, but also we can create another function. Okay, I will create another function for display. It will be void display function, but first I will call in the main function. Let's call this first. We will use this. We will call this create spheres function. And first I will define. Let me define this display function. Again, we will have a local variable integer x will be equals to 0. And let's write while x is lesser, but now we will not use, of course we can't access the number, because the number is just a local variable, but we can access to the vector boxes, and we will write if x is lesser than boxes dot size of that vector. And let's write cout. We will write sphere, and and we need the number of that sphere, but our x is 0. We need to write x plus 1, and let's write 2 dots. And we can continue with the text. Now we will write, we need a little space, and we will write volume. And now we will write boxes of which element of element of x start from 0. Boxes of x dot get volume. And we will not use end line because it will be written in the same line. And now let's write the surface. Again, we'll use a little space. We'll write surface. And boxes of element x dot get surface. Okay, with this function, all of these spheres will be written, and we need to call this function here. And we can now try to test this application. Let's use a build and run. Let me see if we have some errors. Okay, we didn't, my mistake, we didn't include a vector here in the main function. Now let's use build and run again. Okay, how many spheres? Let's type 4 spheres. First of all, enter sphere radius. It can be 2.68. Enter sphere radius 5.26, 5.03, and 1.78. And I get just a second. What's the problem? Because I forgot to increment x here. And let's try again. Let me see another. Okay, here in the while of x is incremented. Okay, here is also, but it was just. Let's use build and run again. How many spheres? 4. Sphere radius 4.56, 4.23, 1.89, 0.75. Okay, but we need to fix this a little. Okay, it is righted, but as you can see, all in the same sphere 1, then sphere 2. Okay, it needs to be fixed. Now let me see where are this syntax error. Okay, this we are starting here. First, we need for this let's separate that a little. Okay, we have this sphere. Okay, and we forgot, this is because we forgot n line. Here in the where we write the surface, we need to use n line. We forgot it. That's okay. Okay, this is just for creating, but here we also can use. Now let's it is just to separate. When we type how many spheres, we enter the number, and we will have just one line of space. And okay, now let's try again to see if it will work properly. Okay, 4 spheres. Okay, it is better. We have a space between them. Sphere radius 2.6789, and this is not good. We have just a second. We have now. We need to enter the radius, but instead of sin, let's use. Maybe it is better to use just let's try again. How many spheres? 4. 3.23, 5.5678. Okay, that was my mistake. 5.67. Maybe I didn't input some correctly. And this is good, but I don't understand. Did I input? We have all of these spheres, as you can see, volume and the surface. As you can see, sphere 1 we have a volume, we have a surface. Sphere 2 we also have volume and the surface of all spheres. I don't understand what happened before. Let me try again. Maybe I put how many spheres? 4, maybe 5,345. Okay, that was I input comma instead of dot. That was the error. As you can see, we need to use a dot, and we can just try again to see if we type 3 spheres. Okay, 5, 2.76, 3.5. As you can see, we have the volume and the surface of all spheres, which is perfect. But now what we want to do, we want to, for example, to find a sphere with minimum volume or minimum surface. The same thing, we can find a sphere with maximum volume and maximum surface. Okay, it depends what we want to do, and let's create a function for that. We just wanted to see if creating of spheres and displaying the spheres work perfectly fine. Now it works. Let's continue with our application. Now what we want to do, we will create. Let's create a function, void function, and it will be void function. Minimum volume will be the name of the function. With this function, we will find the sphere with minimum volume, and inside we need a couple of variables. Let's create one. First, we need. Again, we will use while local variable x will be equals to 0, and we will create a sphere. We can call it S, and we will define it. As boxes. By default, we will just give. It can be boxes.front. But it will be just or we can type boxes of element 0. It doesn't matter. It is just the default value of this sphere. But we want a sphere with minimum minimum volume, and we need to create a double variable. Minimum will be equals to 0, and we will need to find which is the sphere with minimum volume, but also we will need index We need to know the index of the sphere, if it's sphere 1 or sphere 2, 3, doesn't matter, and this index will be an integer, and we will define it as 0. It is just default. These all are default values, and let's create while loop now. While x is lesser than boxes dot size, first we need to define a minimum. Let's create if statement. If minimum equals to 0, or minimum is greater than boxes of element x dot get volume. Minimum will be equals to boxes of element x dot get volume. And now we can redefine our sphere. Sphere S will be equals to boxes of element x. Okay, as we already know, if for example, if a first sphere element 0 has the minimum volume, for example, we need to write it, but we will not use x. And we will use element 0 of the vector of boxes is sphere 1. For example, if the sphere 1 has the minimum volume, index not will be equals to x, because our spheres start from 1. Index will be equals to x plus 1. For example, if sphere with second element of the sphere 3, for example, is the second element of the vector of boxes, and index will be 2 plus 1 will be 3. It means it is a sphere 3. And now we just need to write a message. Let's write a message. We will write minimum volume, but we can use n to separate it a little. And line, and let's write sphere, and we will use index. And now we need to write volume, okay, we can use or we can write a minimum, or we can write sphere s dot get volume. It will be the same. Let's write s dot get volume, but it will be the same if I think it will be the same with minimum. And okay, we can use end line now. We don't need to write, because we just want a sphere with minimum volume, and I think it should be fine. And let me see how it will gonna work. And we can also write but let me try this if it will work properly. How many spheres? 3.5, 2.78, 7.23, 7.26, and as you can see, just a second, and again the same thing. This is not. I again forgot to increment this d6 in the while loop. Now let's run again. How many spheres? 4 spheres. 4.78, 2.23, 7.23, 7.34. As you can see, here is the we have our 4 spheres. Sphere 1, sphere 2, 3, 4. Each of the spheres has its own volume. Okay. As you can see, minimum volume has the sphere 2 with it is 34.83, and this is correct. This works properly, and now of course we can try again. We will try again, but we can use this minimum volume function. We can create a minimum surface. We will just edit it a little. Edit copy and edit paste. Okay, this while loop is incremented, it's good, but let's change it a little. We will call it minimum surface. Okay, these all variables are the same. Boxes.size, but here instead of get volume we will have get surface, and here instead of volume we can type surface. Okay, we have S and we have X. Okay, this is good, and we just need to change the text. Minimum surface. Okay, we have here get volume, but instead it will be get surface. And also we could I think we could do it without this sphere. We just could use this minimum. It will be the same thing, completely the same. I can use minimum. Let's try. We will use, instead of s.getVolume, we will use a minimum. And let's try, but before try we need to call this function minimum surface. Okay, and let's create more spheres. How many spheres? Let's create 7 spheres. Okay. 3.34, 3.9, 0.89, 2.7, 3.5678, 6.25 and 4.25. Okay, let me see. We have all 7 spheres. Each has own volume and surface. As you can see, sphere number 3 has the minimum. It is just 2.21, and the minimum volume is sphere 3 with 2.21, which is perfect. And minimum surface. Okay. 226, as you can see, 490, 159, 91 and 9.95. It is, of course, it is a minimum. It is a minimum surface. Of course, we can also find the surface with maximum. Sphere with maximum surface. Okay, I can create that function. Okay, where is the minimum surface? We will just copy that function and we will change it a little. edit, copy, let's paste it, and instead of min surface we will call max surface, will be the name of the function. Instead of minimum we will have the maximum. Okay, we also have an index if x is lesser, but instead of minimum, okay, we will have a maximum here. We don't need this last one bracket, and okay, if minimum is lesser than boxes of element x dot get surface, but it will not be minimum, it will be a maximum. And here we will have maximum. Okay, s will be equals to boxes of element e, index will be okay. This is good, and just we need to replace here, instead of a minimum we will have maximum surface and sphere index, and here instead of minimum we will have maximum, and it will be okay. Now let's just let's call this function to our main in the main function. Let's build and run again. How many spheres? Okay, we can create 9 spheres. Okay, let's start. 5.98, 3.345, it's okay. 3.87, 8.90, okay, it's okay. 2.76, 2.8, 0.54 should be the minimum, and 3.15, and okay, maybe I use a comma. I use a comma in the number 8, as you can see, and the minimum is number 9. Okay, I made a mistake when I use sphere number 8. I use a comma instead of but okay, we will see it works. Minimum, of course, is sphere number 9. It has volume 0, surface 0, and the maximum is 1995. Okay, it works okay. Let's try again, but sometimes instead of dot I use a comma. Okay, we can create 6 spheres should be enough. Okay, 3.15, 12.87, 2.7, 0.45, 9, and 5.86. Let me see again. Okay, as you can see, we have 6 spheres, and let me see, minimum volume is a number 4. Okay, 0.28, it is the minimum, and minimum surface, okay, here is 2.54, and okay, it is a sphere 4. It has minimum volume and minimum surface, and maximum surface is 2081. As you can see, okay, it is maximum surface, and it is sphere number 2, and here it writes sphere number 2. This means that this application works perfectly fine. Okay, it wasn't so easy, but it wasn't too much complicated. It's just important thing to create our class properly and define private field and the public functions, to define it properly, and we created our spheres and put them in the static vector. The most important thing to remember, this static vector, we will use it in the next tutorials. We will not all create this type of vectors in the main function. We will create it static vector we can access that vector into the entire it doesn't matter if we are using main or some other function, we can access to this static vector, and this works perfectly fine. I really hope that you like this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram. You have a link in the description, and I will see you in the next tutorial.